Okay, in this video we are going to calculate the volume of a sphere. Now a sphere is like a circular object like a football or a globe. Okay. The formula of a sphere is given to you in the exam. This is it here. It is 4/3 pi r cubed. So watch, we're using the cubed button now, okay? So somewhere on your calculator you should have a button that says x cubed, okay? Now this one will be given to you in the exam. You don't need to memorise, you just need to be very careful and use it correctly. So we've got a picture of a globe here. The picture's not actually come out the best, but we've got a globe with a radius of 11. So I'm going to go straight into the formula, and my examples are all meant to be to two significant figures for this video, okay? So volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. So there's only really one thing to substitute here, which is the radius. So we've got 4/3 times pi times 11 cubed. Now go type that into your calculator. Two ways of doing it. You could use your fraction button, and if it comes up like that, you simply put in the 4 over the 3, or you could put in 4 divided by 3 times pi times all the rest. Either way, when you go put it into your calculator, you get an answer of this. Okay, now that's set to 2 decimal places just now, but my question wants it to two significant figures. And remember, anytime you're asked for significant figures, please write down the unrounded answer first, just in case you mess up in the rounding. So we're going to keep the 2 5s at the beginning. The next number is a 7, which makes that go up to 5,600. And that is to 2 sig fig. And I always write that at the end so we know what we've rounded it to. Okay? Next example. So this isn't an actual sphere, this is like a hemisphere, like a bowl. It's exactly half of a sphere. So there's 2 ways to do this one. We could go in with V equals 4/3 pi r cubed and effectively find the full volume, but because we want half, you can stick a divide by 2 on the end. The other option is, some teachers teach, well, instead of 4/3, why don't we just find 2/3? So if a full sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed, a hemisphere is 2/3 pi r cubed. It's entirely up to you. Just from experience, I just find sometimes you're a bit safer using the original formula and then dividing it by 2 at the end, okay? Just in case you haven't written down the 2/3 formula, you've got more chance of getting it correct or as many marks as possible. So I'm not going to use that formula, it can go away. So we're going to use this one. So the radius of this is half of 28, so the radius we're using is 14. So be careful with your radius, okay? So the radius is 14. So we have 4/3 times pi times 14 cubed, and then we're going to just do the divide by 2 with it to get our answer, and that gives us 5747.02. Now, we wanted to 2 significant figures. All my examples in this video are 2 significant figures. So I'm keeping the 5 and the 7. 4 does nothing. So that becomes 5,700 centimetres cubed to 2 sig fig. Okay, but it might be your teacher does teach you just to do the 2/3. This is the way I prefer. Okay, so this question here is a reverse volume one. Very, very common. They give you the volume of an item and ask you to work backwards to find the radius or the height. But obviously, because this is a sphere, the only thing we can do is the radius. So first thing to do is we're going to start with the formula. V equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Now, as always, there's several ways to do this. We could do change the subject, or we could plug in our numbers and then try to rearrange things. So I'm going to do it both ways. So if I was doing change of subject, the first thing I would do is I need to undo that divide by 3. So I'm going to do a 3 times v. So I'll have a 3v equals 4 pi r cubed. Now your aim is to try and get the r in its own. So I now need to divide by 4 pi because 4 pi is times in just now. So it's going to be 3v over 4 pi equals r cubed. And then at that point, we're just going to take a cube root even. So it's going to be the cube root of 3 times your volume all over 4 pi. Now at that point, we can just substitute in our numbers. We know the volume is 300. So it'll be the cube root of 3 times 300. You could even put 900 in there if you wanted. All over 4 times pi. And if you go to your calculator and type that in very carefully, if you've got that lovely fraction button in your calculator, this is a doddle. If not, you might have to do it in bits and maybe put a bracket down here around the 4 pi. It all depends on what your calculator does. but a lot of my pupils have that lovely fraction button where they can just do 3 times 300 on the bottom and type it in exactly as it looks. So if I put in those numbers and then take the cube root, I'm just waffling here while I go and type this into my calculator, it gives me an answer of 4.15. Now it's 4152, and I've just noticed my question said 2 sig fig. So to 2 significant figures, that is 4.15 centimetres. Okay, now do you know what, if you're really unsure in an exam, what could you do to check that? You could always go plug your numbers back in again and plug in your 4.15 cubed and check that it does come back to roughly the answer of 300. Now I'm going to show you another way that might be a wee bit simpler. So we could start by doing 4/3 pi r cubed equals, and then put the volume of 300 in here. And then if you want r cubed, we're going to absolutely undo everything in a funny order, right? So we're going to start with the 300. The opposite of this divide by 3 is times 3. The opposite of times and before is dividing by 4. And then opposite of times and by pi is dividing by pi. And it looks a really long way of doing it, but it does work. And if you type all that in, you will get 71.6-ish. So you get 71.619. Now if you now cube root that number, now I'm keeping the full thing in my calculator and just doing it from that. And if I do the cube root of my previous answer, I also get 4.152. So 4.152. Now I've just noticed a mistake I made a second ago. It said to 2 significant figures. I did 2 decimal places. So you're probably shouting at me, what's she doing? So I'm going to go back to this bit over here, and I'm just going to change my answer to 2 sig fig, that it should actually be 4.2 centimetres if I round this to 2 sig fig. So it's silly me. So that's me done all the examples I kind of cover. Here I've now got 5 for you to go try on your own. So the first 3 are straightforward. Go get the volumes. Be careful with this one. We need to stick a divide by 2 on the end here for the hemisphere one. And the bottom 2 are working backwards to get the radius, but just watch this one. Once you get the radius, actually wants a diameter. So pause the video, give these a wee try, and then when you're done, there's answers will appear when you press play again. Okay, so thank you, good luck. And then here is your answers. So thanks for watching. I hope this has helped you with the volume of a sphere.